Welcome back to the Green Yard and to another exciting planting video. We're over here in the food forest part of the Green Yard. We have our beautiful koi fish pond right behind us, as well as all of our varieties of fruiting and flowering tropical trees here. Right here is our Hall avocado tree. This is one of the first trees that I did a video on, starting kind of our new transition into what the Green Yard has become as I planted this Hall avocado. It's doing really well here in its spot. Nice shade in the afternoon. You can see I'm putting out a whole bunch of new growth. It is the towards the end of July here in Phoenix, Arizona, Zone 9B, and it is hot. It's still in the above 110. I believe today it's going to be 110. Tomorrow it's 115. So it's still very hot. We're getting a few clouds here and there, which is kind of nice. But the fact that this Hall avocado is putting out this new growth and doing so well with that hot temperature is really a testament to this microclimate here. We can talk more about that in a few minutes. But let's talk about what we're planting today. I have picked up a beautiful Atemoya, and so I haven't really ventured into the Moyas yet, right? We have our Cherimoya, Atemoya, we have our Relinia, our custard apples. I do have a Soursop tree, which is actually right on the other side, and our Soursop tree has been kicking butt. It's actually probably growing since I planted it a little over a year ago, and it's grown over 2 feet in the last year. So it is doing very well in its spot over there, and I'll definitely cut to that so you can see it. So I wanted to put our Atemoya in a similar kind of microclimate. It is going to get a little bit more sun, which I've heard our Atemoya can take just after a few years. So I am going to provide some supplemental shade, and we'll talk about that as we get this guy in the ground today too. So I picked this spot here. It's pretty close to our pond, and it's in this microclimate underneath our huge large mulberry tree. Our Atemoyas do need that afternoon shade after about 10 o'clock in the morning in the summer. And they do require that cold protection as well. So really anything below 40 degrees, they're going to need that protection. I like to protect all of my tropical trees below about 50 degrees. That's my cutoff. And that's what I did last winter with our Soursop tree, and it did very well. Even though we had one of the coldest winters we've had here in Phoenix last winter, it actually did really well and has come back with a vengeance this year, and it's putting off a whole bunch of new growth. So I am planning on covering this Atemoya, and probably will be doing so here in the near future as well, and moving forward. I used to have a blackberry jamfruit bush here where I'm standing. Unfortunately, that blackberry jam bush did not make it through our last winter. It had been in the ground for over 2 years, and I just did not protect it the way I needed to. I still put my frost fabric up, but I didn't really supply that supplemental heat like I should have. And you can learn all about how I cover my tropical trees in the link. I'm going to include that to our video where we talk about covering and cold protection for our tropical fruiting trees. But since our blackberry jamfruit is no longer here, and I am sad about that, I was looking forward to it. It had done really well too. I figure this is a prime spot to put in our Atemoya. So let's go ahead. I'm going to start clearing out some of this space. We have our lemongrass here too, which I am going to keep. I'm actually going to plant the Atemoya a little bit, basically where I'm standing, so a little bit further over from the blackberry jam bush to give it a little bit more space here next to our avocado. So let's go ahead, let's get the Atemoya out of the way and start digging this hole and getting our beautiful Atemoya in the ground. Here we go. All right, so hole is pretty much dug out. Even though I had my blackberry jamfruit here previously, I haven't really watered this area. It gets our flood irrigation. Not really enough to have it matter, to say. So it really hasn't been getting the water that it needs over here. So it is really dusty, really dry. I am going to mix in our nursery soil, that really organically rich, basically potting soil, in with our native soil to help give our Atemoya a little bit better chance. So I'm going to go grab that. Alright, so I went ahead and I dug our hole. As you saw there, I mixed in our native soil, this clay soil, with our potting soil. It creates kind of this, not necessarily black color, because that's not what we're going for. We're trying to give the plant a good head start to get it acclimated from its soil in the pot to get used to the soil that's here. We do have that hard clay soil. I'm sorry, it's pretty soft here, but it's still clay soil. And I end up adding in that nursery soil as well to help with that drainage too. So that's kind of why we do that. I dug out a whole bunch of this, and even though I had our blackberry jamfruit here before, it was over a little bit more. So even when I was digging in, it's just like I'm literally planting in this clay soil. So luckily I saw that, I noticed it, and I amended it. So let's go ahead, let's take our Atemoya here. Here's our beautiful tree. We're going to take our Atemoya and we're going to see how rooted out it is. I actually don't think it's that rooted out. On this one, it actually been in the nursery for over a year when I bought it, which was recently. So it should be rooted out, but not necessarily. I was concerned because it still has the graft tape on here, but even at the nursery, I know them pretty well, and they even said it's fine. It's been in the nursery for over a year, and that's, you know, almost a year after they grafted it. So it's been grafted for over, 2 years or so. But let's see how rooted out this guy is. I might need to cut the pot, actually. So I'm going to go get a cutter here. So I went ahead and grabbed some old scissors that I have here. I don't want to disturb the root ball too much, and I feel like if I pull on it, it's not rooted out as much as I would like it to be. So we're just going to cut down the side of the pot here. Cut as best we can. Just try to open it up. And then we're going to try to cut across the bottom a little bit too. See if we can get it to really open up here. It's proven to be a little bit more difficult on the bottom. It's still not too bad. I'm going to add in a little bit more dirt into here. I feel like this hole is going to be too deep for what we got in here. Yeah, it's definitely not rooted out. Let's see if we can cut it a little bit more on the bottom. Okay, all right. We opened it up. It is not rooted out at all. So we're just gonna take the pot, put it in the hole as best we can. I gotta add a little bit more soil into it. Just a little bit more. All right. We're just gonna kind of dump the plant as best we can out of the pot. Okay. And now we're gonna give it an old lift. That actually looks pretty good right there. You can see our root flare is right here, up at the top. So that'll be exposed. I'm gonna go ahead and bring in my mixed soil to fill in as best I can this area. I have a lot of mixed soil, which is actually a good thing. I'd rather have too much than too little. Move some of this lemongrass out of the way. Ooh, smells really good though. And we're gonna make sure we can still see that root flare. There it is. All right. That actually looks pretty dang good. So, the one thing with this Atemoya is that this area hasn't had a lot of mulch around it for a while. I put over 3 feet of mulch in other parts of the food forest part of the green yard, and some of you have actually commented on that. But this spot right here, this is kind of my walking path to get back to the rest of the food forest, so it doesn't really have the mulch it needs. So I'm going to go ahead and grab a couple buckets of mulch and really heavily mulch this before I water it in. I do want to as well make a berm with the excess soil that I'm actually sitting on right now. That excess soil is going to go around in a berm around the outside of the tree, so when I do water it, it holds that water in and really forces that water to deep soak into the tree itself. Now, since I have my scissors here right now, I am going to cut this guy off, this stake. We don't want to keep our nursery stakes no matter what the tree looks like, even if it flops over as soon as we pull it out. We don't want to keep our nursery stakes in there. It can cause issues with root growth, so I'm going to take this stake and just throw it off to the side, and I'm going to just evaluate this for a little bit, see how it's growing for the first week or so, and then I may end up adding in a support. And what I'll do with that is I'll put a stick on either side, and then I'll just simply put a string or that plant tape and just tie it up here in the middle to give it that little bit of support. But I do want it to still move. I want it to be able to do this because that's how the plant ends up building up that muscle, so to say, right? That muscle to be able to withstand the wind and everything is with this motion. Let's go ahead, let's add in our berm around, and then we're gonna get some mulch. Here we go. Alright, so I already came in, I used my shovel, I brought in all this extra dirt, kind of built this berm around, so when I do water this in here in a minute, it is going to really soak in. And now on top of this berm, I'm going to go ahead and add some mulch. So I have this big bucket of mulch right here, probably going to end up doing another bucket as well, but I'm just going to pour it around, just like this. Pour it, pour it, pour it, pour it, all the way around in the back too. Yep, at least one more. Spread it a little bit with my hands. Yeah, let's go grab one more bucket. Alright, so our beautiful Atemoya is in the ground. I'll explain here in a minute why I added that sulfur and that mulch. But I wanted to talk real quick and show you guys the microclimate that I'm talking about. So not only does it have this pond right behind it, the pond does increase the temperature slightly in the winter and decrease it slightly in the summer. It's not really enough to make too much of a difference, but you can see there's a lot of foliage in the pond, and that's part of what helps it, is that we're really densely planting these trees. Helps to better create that microclimate, retain that moisture, keep everything shaded, and it's going to help our Atemoya be successful. Over to our left we have our Hall avocado, like I was mentioning earlier. Haven't really done an update on our Hall avocado since I planted it over a year ago. It has been doing really, really well though, putting off a lot of new growth. And one thing that I've really been noticing lately is that it's branching out. So it's adding a lot of new branches to it, which is awesome. We have a red dragon fruit here climbing up our giant mulberry tree, and that's kind of one of the other aspects that I was going to mention. It's about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and as you can tell, it is really shaded right now, and part of the reason it is so shaded is because of our awesome mulberry tree here. This tree is probably 60 plus years old, and it does a great job with that afternoon shade. Our hall avocado now, I just did a trim on this tree, but our hall avocado now is getting sun until about 11:30, and then it's getting no more sun, which is perfect. That's kind of what we want. We want them more closer to 10 a.m., but so far that hall avocado is doing great with that 11 o'clock. So our Atemoya is going to be in kind of the same shape, which is why I'm going to supply some extra sun protection. Here is our Soursop tree. It has just been taking off in its spot. It's over on the other side of this tree, our mulberry tree, so it gets a little bit of morning sun and very little afternoon sun, if any at all. And so that's the same with our santal tree, and soon our red button ginger. They're all going to get kind of that shade most of the day. Our plumeria here actually wanted a little bit more sun, and then now it's getting a little sunburnt. Same with our papaya. It's needed a little bit more sun. We also have our jabuticaba down there too, and our Cherimoya holding on to those 3 mangoes right now. So this microclimate is really important for our Atemoyas, our Cherimoyas, our sugar apples, any kind of those really tropical fruits, our Soursops, our Rolinias. You really need to have an established microclimate like this to be successful with them. And even with this established microclimate, like I mentioned, I am going to supply some supplemental afternoon. And when I say afternoon, from like 9 a.m. on, supplemental shade for this year. Next year it should do fine. Part of the reason I did get an Atemoya is because it is the most cold tolerant of the group. But we're going to talk about that here in a second too. Here we go. Okay, so microclimate's really important, especially to be successful with our tropical fruiting, flowering trees. Especially when you start getting into like the ultra tropicals, like our Soursop, our sugar apples, our Atemoyas, Cherimoyas, even just most of our ultra tropicals there, our santal tree. And with the Atemoya here, the other thing I was going to mention is it's the most cold hardy of our moyas, right? Our Cherimoyas, our Soursops. So it's the most cold hardy of the group, and pretty much below that 30 degrees it can withstand up until that freezing temperature, that 32 degrees, maybe a little bit lower. It's going to die back, it's going to look like crap, but at least it'll come back, it'll be okay. And as they get older, they're more and more cold hardy. So for here in Phoenix, from what I've heard from people that have been growing it, from what I've seen, from doing research myself, the Atemoya is the way to go to start getting into kind of those moyas. Even the Soursop is a lot harder than our Atemoya. So I'm excited for this tree. I know people have successfully gotten fruit off our Atemoyas here in the Phoenix Valley, so I'm looking forward to hopefully in the next couple of years getting some fruit off this Atemoya. I've actually never had an Atemoya before, but I've had Cherimoyas. Delicious fruit. I'm super excited, and I know our Atemoya is a cross between a Cherimoya and like a sambusa or something else. I'm not sure. I'll include it below, but it does have some Cherimoya in it, so I know the fruit is going to be delicious as well. I did add in that agricultural sulfur after our mulch, so I heavy mulched it. That's to help not only with creating more organic matter in the soil, but also for our water retention. It helps kind of cut down that watering that we have to do, to where I will only probably have to water this tree once every week while it's 115 instead of every day. And then in the winter, once every 2 weeks, once a month is probably what I'll end up doing.
so that mulch is really important to be successful with our fruiting and flowering trees here in the Phoenix area. And then I did add in our agricultural sulfur as well. That's to lower the pH. Our Atemoyas, Cherimoyas, they all require a lower pH, an acidic soil, typically between like 5 and 7. And our soil and our water here in Phoenix is 8 to 8.5. So we have to add in that agricultural sulfur to break down and kind of lower the pH, acidify the soil. And what that ends up doing is it allows the tree to pick up any nutrients that we might be adding. I like to do fish emulsion, so I'll be adding some fish emulsion to this plant. It'll allow the tree to actually access those nutrients. So I'm super excited about this tree. It's actually one that I've been wanting to add to the green yard for a very long time. That and our star fruit, which I know I just did a video on as well. So these are two trees that I've kind of been waiting for. They've been on my wish list and I finally got to add them. So I'm super excited to see what happens in the future. I'm definitely bringing you guys along. If you have any questions, please feel free to comment below. Let me know. If you want to see a video on another tree, I know a lot of people have been mentioning the Soursop lately. I'm planning on doing a growing update on our Soursop here shortly, so keep an eye out for that as well. And as always, live green, plant lots, and of course have fun. We'll see you next time.